Tuberculosis is one of the oldest diseases known to humanity, so ancient that we found two skeletons dating back 9,000 years with bones infected by TB bacteria. Even today, it remains one of the most deadly infectious diseases worldwide. In 2023, the World Health Organization recorded 10.8 million cases, with India being one of the countries with the highest number of these cases. In fact, 27% of these cases were from India. The city of Mumbai has the highest concentration in the world of drug-resistant bacteria. This means that the TB bacteria in Mumbai have evolved to resist the effects of medications, rendering them ineffective. In February 2020, 8 researchers from various universities and institutions published a study on the relationship between architectural design and the spread of tuberculosis in 3 different areas of Mumbai, India. What happened was that one of the researchers noticed a higher number of TB patients coming from specific buildings in those areas. It's important to know that bacteria are influenced by the environment they live in, and TB bacteria, in particular, thrive in damp, dark areas and dislike dry, sunny places. So, the researchers decided to study the design of these buildings. They created simulations of the buildings and analyzed factors such as how much sunlight different parts of the building received, air circulation speed, the rate at which air changes in a specific area, and other similar factors. They did this to determine whether building design genuinely impacts the spread of the disease. They found that the number of TB cases was lower on the upper floors compared to the lower ones. This is because the buildings are tall and the streets between them are narrow, preventing direct sunlight from reaching the lower floors like it does on the upper ones. The researchers also discovered that the corridors between apartments tend to be dark and lack sunlight due to poor design considerations. Additionally, they noted that the windows in these buildings are sliding windows that only open halfway, unlike traditional windows that can open fully, which limits the amount of air circulation inside. Interestingly, this isn't the only study to find such results. A 2013 study in Hong Kong revealed a relationship between floor height and the likelihood of TB infection in tall buildings. Essentially, the higher the floor, the lower the risk of infection. Similarly, another study conducted in Switzerland in 2016 found that infection rates improved when residential building regulations were updated to address these issues. Yes, there is actually laws that connects the width of the street to the height of the building. And in fact, tuberculosis was one of the biggest factors that influenced residential building laws. Not only that, but it also impacted the design of old architecture. In the past, when people built a structure that would stand for 50 years, they would add decorations and details that reflected their beliefs and faith. But nowadays, people have shifted towards modern architecture, where architects prefer not to include unnecessary details in buildings. The focus now is on practical thinking. Do you need a place to pray? Then you just need a chair to sit on and windows. This shift from classical to modern design happened because of tuberculosis. Let me tell you the story of this change and the Finnish architect, Alvar Aalto. As I mentioned, tuberculosis is an ancient disease, and until 1676, people didn't even know bacteria existed. The disease reached its peak outbreak in the late 18th century, and by the early 19th century, it was killing 1 in every 7 people. It was no longer just an illness, it had become a full-blown epidemic. At that time, they referred to it as the White Plague, because for them, it felt like an added form of the plague. People back then couldn't understand the disease or its nature, and of course, there was no treatment. Antibiotics were still a completely new idea. People tried various methods to treat it, but nothing worked. However, they found that the best approach was to isolate patients in open, natural areas, ensuring they rested well and ate properly. So, the design of the sanatorium became the most important focus because it was the place where the patients would stay. In 1929, it was decided to build a sanatorium in Finland, and the winner of the design competition was a Finnish architect named Alvar Aalto. Aalto created designs that were very unusual, not only for people at the time, but also for him personally. Early in his career, Alvar Aalto used to design buildings resembling classical architecture, adding some simple decorative elements. However, the building he designed for the sanatorium was entirely different. It was a plain white structure filled with large windows, long balconies, and a spacious terrace on the rooftop. Today, you might look at it and think it's just a normal building, but back then these features were revolutionary and completely new. Aalto designed the building to serve its function perfectly. He wanted to create a place that would be easy to keep clean, keeping it simple, with no spots where dust could accumulate and become difficult to clean. So, he decided to eliminate decorations entirely, no columns on the walls or anything else that might gather dust. Then, he thought about how to maximize sunlight inside the building, so he made the windows as large as possible. He also wanted the patients to have access to fresh air and sunlight, so he designed long, wide balconies for them. At the time, these extended balconies were completely unconventional. The idea of a long building with 5 or 6 balconies stacked on top of each other was quite strange back then. Aalto's goal was to create the perfect building, which he referred to as a medical instrument. He believed the building itself should function as a tool for doctors, not just a healthcare facility. The design of the building would actively contribute to the treatment process. While designing the sanatorium, Aalto was actually ill himself, spending most of his time bedridden. This gave him a critical insight. Architects typically design spaces with a vertical person in mind, someone standing or sitting on a chair. But in a hospital, the patient is horizontal, lying down and looking up. This realization led him to rethink the design to suit the bedridden patient. For example, placing lights directly on the ceiling wouldn't work, as they would strain the patient's eyes. The solution was to slope the ceiling slightly and incorporate hidden lighting behind it. He also used psychologically soothing colors, like soft shades of blue. Patients spend most of their time lying down, looking upward or outward, so Aalto ensured the sanatorium was built outside the city, surrounded by mountains and trees. However, since the patients are lying down, the windows needed to be large and placed closer to the ground, allowing the patient's gaze to extend outward over long distances. Even the reception area of the building needed to have bright, uplifting colors, like yellow, to create a cheerful atmosphere, even on days without sunlight. You have to keep in mind that this was in Finland, where the sun disappears for long periods. Alvar Aalto didn't stop at the overall structure. He also designed specific details to improve the patient's experience. For instance, he created sinks with a curved design to minimize noise, ensuring a quieter and more peaceful environment. He also designed the famous Paimio chair, a reclining chair meant to help patients breathe more easily by positioning them at an optimal angle. These small, thoughtful details showed how deeply Aalto considered the needs of the patients in every aspect of his design. Aalto believed that the sanatorium wasn't just a place where people came to take medicine and leave. It was essentially a home, but one for patients. Then he thought, using the same logic, why not design our homes as if they were sanatoriums too? If the design of a sanatorium could create a clean and healthy environment, it made sense for our daily lives to benefit from the same principles. This approach became a broader philosophy, and the style Aalto used in the sanatorium started influencing the design of everything. At that time, many other architects adopted this way of thinking, and the principles of sanatorium design spread across America and Europe. All of this stemmed from the design of a single tuberculosis sanatorium. Historically, medicine and architecture were deeply intertwined, as architects were once required to study anatomy to understand how the human body was built from skin and bones and to recreate its elegance in their designs. This is evident in the work of Leonardo da Vinci, who sketched anatomical studies alongside architectural plans, seeing the body and buildings as parallel masterpieces of form and function. Architecture, in its truest sense, is the art of giving structure to life, and in understanding the body. Architects once sought to craft spaces as intricate and enduring as the human frame itself. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content just like this.